on choke. This is not good. Hey y'all, thanks for tuning back into Chickanic. I hope everybody's having a great week. Today I have decided to revisit some statements I have said in the past because I might have gave you some wrong info, and I don't like to do that. If you have watched my past videos, you know I have been one of the biggest advocates for Ethanol Shield fuel stabilizer. Now, this company does not sponsor me, they do not pay me anything, I just have used their product for 15 years and know it works. I've made videos proving how it will eat water droplets that get into your gasoline, help fight the ethanol fuel that's hygroscopic and will suck the water right out of the air. And from the tens of thousands of pieces of equipment that has come through my shop, we make sure to put Ethanol Shield in everything we work on because we have so many customers that don't pick their equipment up for months. We don't want to repair it again. I also was impressed with their pump saver. The video you saw me do with that, I was shocked at how well it worked. I thought you would have to put it in your pump, let it sit there for hours, and eventually it would erode all the water deposits away. It worked immediately. So yeah, that is two of their products that I firmly stand behind that work really well. But for years now, they have another one called Mechanic in the Bottle that I haven't been as kind about. You see, I'm not in the business of gambling that something's going to be repaired. I have to know it is repaired for my customers. So if a piece of equipment comes in that's been sitting for a long time, will not start, has bad fuel in it, I have to tear it apart, look inside of the carburetor, make sure that it's clean, put it back together, check the running, so I know I can stand behind my work. With Mechanic in a Bottle, you don't do that. You literally just get rid of your old gasoline, pour this in there, let it sit for 4 hours, and hope it works. So for the last 5 years that I've been making videos, when it came to Mechanic in the Bottle, I would tell you, yeah, I've used it for like rejuvenating the diaphragms in a carburetor after I've already removed them from a carburetor, or if it was a needle out of some weird Chinese carburetor that I couldn't get, and it was rubber tip, I would soak it in Mechanic in a Bottle and it would rejuvenate it. But when it came to actually going by the instructions and doing what you were supposed to with it, I just didn't have the time. But I feel it is a disservice to you if I don't actually test it. And I know I've got some equipment around here that I could definitely try it on. So why am I making this video now and trying Mechanic in a Bottle? Well, I had a piece of equipment come in the other day. You might have seen my post about it. When they brought this 30-year-old weed eater handheld blower in, they thought that it wasn't priming any fuel, that something was wrong with the purge bulb. But actually, the lack of fuel lines and fuel filter was definitely what was wrong with it. Now, of course, a customer is not going to want to pay me full labor to put a carburetor kit in, the price of the carburetor kit, fuel lines, fuel filter, fuel supply charge, on a blower this old. So I tried Mechanic in a Bottle. I installed some new fuel lines, put in some fresh fuel, put in a new fuel filter. The primer bulb was fine, and it still didn't want to prime well. So I poured that gas out, put in some Mechanic in the Bottle, and let it sit overnight. And lo and behold, check it out now. Let's put her on choke, low speed, high speed, just wait. Take her off choke. I didn't even need to adjust the carburetor. So you're telling me I went from diaphragms that were so hard that I couldn't barely pump any gas through it to letting it sit overnight with some Mechanic in the Bottle and it run like it's brand new? That was crazy to me. So I need to put it to the test. Let's try it out on some other equipment that I've let sit way too long. For instance, I have got a yard vacuum with a Briggs & Stratton on it that I've been using as a gate stop for the last 2 years. Let's see what she looks like inside the tank. Completely empty. Well, that's a blessing. I'm also going to go ahead and throw some fuel in it and see if she leaks, because it either has a rubber tip needle or a rubber tip seat, and one of them is probably hard by now. Now, I want to do this experiment like I have no mechanic ability whatsoever, like I'm a regular homeowner who left a piece of equipment sitting around their yard for a couple of years. So first thing I want to do, I want to put a little fuel in her and see if she will fire up. And if she won't, I'm going to let it sit for a little bit and see if she leaks out the carburetor. Now, she did run just fine a couple years ago, the last time we used her. But I did go ahead and install the bag because it has a safety switch on the bag, and I want to make sure that it's not an electrical issue when I go to try to start it. Put her on choke. This is not good. So immediately, guys, we got some issues here. The needle or seat, whichever is rubber, is not shutting off, and I am pouring gas out like a sieve. Okay, so I had a mess. I had to clean up quickly, and I had to drain what fuel I had put in there. So I've let it all leak out and dry up now. Now, this is a very common issue whenever you leave something sitting. The needle or seat tip is rubber, and they will get hard over time, and they will not seat correctly. So as soon as you put fuel in there, it'll start dripping. Or it could just be a slow drip over time. Now, this one, it was pretty extensive. So this needle and seat is not sealing off at all. But one of the things that Mechanic in a Bottle is supposed to be able to do is rejuvenate the rubber components inside of your carburetor. So this is actually going to be a really good test. So I'm going to go ahead and throw some Mechanic in the Bottle into the gas tank, let it fill up into the carburetor. It is probably going to drip out. I'm going to put something underneath to catch it, and I'm going to see if it actually starts rejuvenating the rubber component and stops the leak. I do want to go ahead and remove the air filter cover and air filter because that's where it's leaking from. It's coming out of the throat here. Yeah. That thing is soaked anyways. Still got a little bit of a puddle down there you can see. All right, so I'm going to throw my Mechanic in a Bottle here, figure out where the leak is, and see if I can catch it. All right. Ooh, it is pouring out like a sieve. Where are we going here? Where are we going? We going over here? We're dripping both sides. Now, supposedly one of the good things about Mechanic in a Bottle is you can reuse it. That, you know, once you've filled up your carburetor, if it stays in there, and you're done with a 4-hour wait time of letting it sit, you can actually pour it out and reuse it again later. What I'm hoping to see here is it somehow rejuvenate the rubber sort of quickly. Now, most of it I'm catching in the jar here. I've got one stray little drip every once in a while coming from the other side. I'm going to go ahead and throw in the rest of the bottle here. So I'm just going to let it sit for a bit. It's still dripping, and we'll see if it stops the leak. Now, while I'm letting this Mechanic in the Bottle run through this carburetor and leak out, I want to explain to you how a carburetor works and why this one's leaking. Now, a carburetor works like a toilet, okay? And a lot of people would come in when their carburetor's leaking out of the bowl and just want a bowl gasket, but every time they did that, I'd tell them that's not going to fix your problem. Because when you take the bowl off, you can see you've got a float here. I'm going to release the float. Take this little lever out. It's connected to your needle. And as the gas fills up in the bowl, the float comes up, which pushes the needle up into the carburetor and shuts your fuel off. Now on this particular one, we've got a rubber tip needle and a brass seat. Sometimes you will have a rubber seat with a metal tip needle. It's one way or the other, unless you've got a piece of equipment that's like 50 years old, and I have seen some metal tip needles into metal seats, but that doesn't happen that often. And it doesn't happen in anything new. So what happens if your needle's hard or your seat's hard and they're not making that connection to shut properly, the bowl will just keep filling up until it comes out your intake. So it doesn't matter how good of a gasket that you put on the bowl, it's gonna keep leaking. All right, it's been about 20 minutes. Let's go check our leak. Well, I can still see it leaking out a little bit, but probably half the bottle of Mechanic in a Bottle is in my jar now, mixed with a little bit of old gas. I'm gonna pour it back into the tank. That way it fills that carburetor back up, and we keep doing this for a little bit. Because the instructions do say you need to let it sit 4 hours to work. The leaky situation is not ideal. So, what do I got here? I got a chipper shredder. And yes, I've let it sit for at least a year. And I know you're thinking, why do you do that to your equipment? Well, I have 2 chipper shredders. And I rarely chip or shred, so this thing rarely ever gets used. I really need to just sell it. But let's try to start it and see if she runs. And of course, let's see if I left fuel in her. I did. Let's take the air filter cover off and make sure she doesn't leak. Well, she's not leaking currently. Let's pull on her a little bit. Put her on choke. She ain't gonna do it. So we're gonna do this by the Mechanic in the Bottle instructions. We're going to take the fuel out of the carburetor, out of the gas tank. I'm gonna put the Mechanic in the Bottle in the carburetor, let it sit for about 4 hours, and we'll see what she does. So first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take my fuel line off of my carburetor and drain the tank. Now I'm going to loosen my bowl nut here and drain out anything that could be in the carburetor still. Tighten it back up. I'm going to reattach our fuel line. Throw in our Mechanic in a Bottle, let her sit for 4 hours. But to be honest, it might sit overnight because I started a little late today. First, I'm going to check and see if this thing's still leaking. Nope. Check that out. It is still leaking. Now, here's something you need to notice though. If I would have left fuel in this with the Ethanol Shield fuel stabilizer in it, like I did my chipper shredder, the rubber components in this machine would still probably be okay. Because that's what Ethanol Shield does. It has oils in it to help keep all of your rubber components inside your carburetor lubricated. All right, now the true test. Can we pour this Mechanic in a Bottle out of the carburetor in the gas tank, throw in some fuel, and she start right up? All right, I want to loosen this nut and get all this Mechanic in a Bottle out. We've drained out pretty much all the Mechanic in the Bottle. I'm going to tighten my bowl nut back up and put some fuel in her. Alright, I got some gas in her and wanted to wait a second, make sure she does not leak, and she looks good. perfect. So I might have to eat some crow. I think Mechanic in the Bottle might work. It runs perfect. Like brand new perfect. Better than I think it did when I fixed it in my last repair video like 2 years ago. All right, I want to try something. I still have the Mechanic in the Bottle in this carburetor. This might not work at all, but I want to throw a little fuel in here, and even though it's going to leak a little bit and I know I need to replace my needle, sometimes it might jostle like loose of where it's stuck maybe, and it might run. So it's a huge gamble. I have no idea if it's going to work or not. I'm going to quickly pour some fuel in here, try to start it, and see what she does. All right, we're leaking, but turn her on. Come on. Wait a minute. It's not leaking anymore. No way. Wait. Y'all, check it out. The wind has completely dried it. There is still that little bit of fuel left in the tank. Ooh, I'm excited. Let's see. Okay, so we're not leaking, but we're not also getting any fuel through the carburetor now. So we went from having the needle and seat not closing off to it being completely shut. So what's my other trick that I told y'all to do whenever you go to start your mower for the first time in the season and it will not start? Always try to lift it up, jostle it a little bit, maybe get that needle to come loose. Shake it, give it a bit of good shake. Gas cap is leaking. Okay. All right, I'm gonna just spray it. And let's hope that helps. I'm retarded. I told you sometimes I'm wrong. I have a bowl full of Mechanic in the Bottle, and what does it say? It says get rid of the Mechanic in the Bottle, make sure the fresh fuel's in there. So let me dump that Mechanic in a Bottle out and try it again. All right, now since I have gas in my tank, I shut the fuel line off with some clamps, and I'm gonna get under here and take this bowl nut loose and drain all that Mechanic in the Bottle out of the bowl. Okay, so I got all the Mechanic in the Bottle out, and I even let it drain until I know that fuel was coming out. So that means the needle is opening. All right, got fuel in her. I'm choking her. Let's see what she does. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? There's no way. That did not just happen. What do you think about that?
You didn't take the carburetor off?
No, I didn't. No.
We're out of a job.
I know, right?
That's crazy.
I know. I had no faith that that was going going to stop the leak and run perfect. Wow.
There's nothing coming out of it.
No. Wow.
I wonder if that works on big carburetors.
I don't know. You wouldn't have all the fun of tearing it apart then.
That is true.
Yeah. And y'all look, it is not pouring a drop of fuel out anymore. Let me show you. Look, it's full. It is full. Okay. Wow. Wow. Well, that's another one I can add to the list of B3C products that I have to say I completely stand behind. I would have never believed that it would get that machine running after it sat for 2 years. The carburetor was leaking like crazy. Y'all saw it. Yes, this does take a lot more time. It's not something that I'm necessarily going to do because I'm in the business of getting things repaired, getting them back to the customer. But to have a bottle sitting around the house, just in case you're in a bind and you got 4 hours to just let it sit, I highly recommend Mechanic in a Bottle. That's 3 units this week that I got running from just this little bottle. Now, I will leave a link in the description box below of Mechanic in the Bottle's video showing how it's much better than some of its comparable competitors because it burns better, it doesn't let off as much carbon, and it eats water better than any of the others. Now, if you want to try Mechanic in a Bottle in your 2-stroke, it's super simple. You've got 2 nipples on your carburetor, one sucking the gas in, one returning it to the tank. Get yourself a couple fuel lines, stick them, release these fuel lines, stick them to your carburetor, and just stick them in the bottle. I use one long, one short, and you just suck the Mechanic in the Bottle, make sure it gets through your entire fuel system into your carburetor, and then the overflow is returning back into your bottle because you can reuse it, and just let it sit. But when it comes to rejuvenating your machine, wow. I will leave a link to all of these in the description box below. Thank you again for tuning in to Chickanic. If you find yourself coming back over and over again, think about hitting that subscribe button. It helps out my channel to make my videos shown to more people to save them time, money, and frustration in the future. And if you didn't see the video where I showed how well Ethanol Shield eats water compared to its competitors, check this video out right here.